In a large, beautiful castle, we hear the hurried, frantic running of a young girl with red hair. Finding her solace is the open door she can escape this castle from. But to her dismay, the door's shut in front of her. Then, the young prince, Clark, calls out to his betrothed, teary-eyed Letitia. Prior to all of that, Letitia Dorman, the daughter of a duke, lived an easygoing life at her countryside estate with her family, until one day, her family received an official letter from the palace. Her mother was overjoyed, delivering what she believed was wonderful news to Letitia, that her future had been decided. Her father explained that she was going to the castle to learn how to be a good wife, and when she learned she'd be without her dog or either of her parents, her eyes welled up. She cried into her father's arms as he consoled her. The only one that would be going with her was her big brother, Nadir. Riding along the way, even with him though, her heart was still aching. They rode through the capital, and arriving at the castle, Nadir had to awaken her, and to Letitia, the castle was huge and intimidating. The castle featured artworks of the royalty and housed nobles that constantly gossiped. Letitia eventually found herself getting shoved into a room, where she was met with her princess teacher, Lila Mayer, who would be her strict instructor in the art of etiquette. Letitia needed to learn how to speak clearly and give a proper greeting to start, all while maintaining the correct posture. Their first lesson was to greet stating her full title as the daughter of Duke Dorman, but with her stammering and natural laxness, Lila had her repeat, making her cry, and yet, this crying would not change a thing. At night, she was still crying into her pillow. She hated when scary people yelled at her. She wanted to go home. However, her big brother was objective, explaining that even if she tried to run, they'd be more strict with her. So, she accepted. And when she did, her brother called in her new attendant, Lily, and she would be thus forward, helping Letitia review for her lessons with Lila. Lily would wake up the slovenly sleeping princess-to-be every morning. Letitia was taught to relax her shoulders, tighten her stomach gracefully, and look straight ahead as if gazing far away, and walk with a book on her head in order to maintain her proper posture while walking. Her failures would bring her to tears, but even so, she would continue over and over. She'd gradually begin to wake up less sloppily, learn how to properly eat with grace, and dance while falling over. But still, her instructor would urge her on. Time would go on. The seasons would change. One morning, Lily did not wake her up, and instead found her ready and staring out at the window ahead of the usual time. Letitia developed grace in a manner akin to her spirit breaking, as she calmly spoke, "Good morning, Lily. It seems like fine weather again. I hope we can look forward to a pleasant day." Without an ounce of emotion. Letitia had become so good, Lila began using her to model for other students to learn. Her greetings held beauty and grace. Her eating was both quaint and elegant. The knowledge and understanding she had during her studies even impressed Lila. Letitia's dancing was flawless, but emotionless. Even pleasantries like tea time were part of the monotonous day-to-day that she wanted to escape from. Stepping into a social event, the people spoke of Letitia's loveliness, almost turning 17 soon. They believed it only made sense she was getting married to Prince Clark. When she reached the floor though, everyone was surprised to see the prince had another woman on his arms named Brianna. He could not accompany Letitia today, and he apologized. And now, learning that their engagement was called off, Letitia backed away shaking, but it wasn't out of sadness. She let out a big hooray, an even bigger surprise than the prince presenting another woman. She was overjoyed the engagement was off. We turn back time to when meeting with her big brother one-on-one, she had him promise if the prince fell in love with someone else, he'd sign official dissolution to her engagement to the prince. She was now heaving for him to hold his promise, and so he agreed. Now all she could shout about was how free she was. She ran up to Brianna to thank her for taking this bad debt off her hands. She recounted her days studying etiquette, just walking perfectly all the time. She had really hated it. Sitting, standing, bowing, nibbling on dainty little meals, studying history, studying politics, studying economics, dancing, drinking bellyfuls of tea, and enduring constant bullying from the nobles calling her a filthy country tramp. Letitia couldn't take off soon enough. Reaching the exit, the prince called for her, but she just interjected by thanking him, telling him she couldn't be happier and wished he'd have broken off their engagement sooner. She declared she'd be moving far away and that he could feel free to be with whomever and sire as many offspring as he wanted to bring prosperity to this kingdom. Stepping outside, she called for a carriage to be taken away, while everyone stared aghast. To this, the prince just smiled though. Back where she had been staying, she informed Lily they'd be moving because of what had happened, something the attendant could hardly believe. But still, Letitia was joyous, reiterating how she'd been suffering since she was 7, how every little thing she's done has been criticized. Don't laugh so loud, you'll bother someone. Like, come on, who'd be bothered by laughter? She hated being told she couldn't run because it was unladylike, but now at last, she's been freed of it all. The deer then arrived, aggravated, and now suggested they move to Alberta Village, back to their country home. Letitia was happy to return to the countryside where there were rivers and forests. Knowing it was a much humbler life than here at the palace, she asked if Lily wanted to come, and now Letitia was even happier hearing Lily would go anywhere with her. Back at the castle, Catherine and Isabella were discussing that with Lady Letitia gone, it was like all light had been drained from this place. Catherine thought Prince Clark and Letitia made the perfect couple. However, Isabella reminded Catherine he had Lady Brianna now. Then suddenly, Butler Sebastian came running to them, letting them know the Queen had requested they explain to her what happened at the ball. Adding to that, they suddenly heard Brianna scream, who was in the midst of princess lessons. She could in no way continue on with the strictest princess instructor, Lila. Back in the countryside, Letty was enjoying the nice weather while lying on the beautiful grass, rolling around. She was happy to be free forever, while Lily peacefully continued her sewing. After getting ready, she took off for the day, deciding to go out for a fun day of fishing. After casting her line, she jolted, hearing a man whisper to her, "Looks like you're having fun." She nearly fell over, but Prince Clark saved her fall while her caught fish came flying over. She definitely wasn't expecting to see him though, and now wondered what his deal was. Post-cooking her fish by the fire, she enjoyed its flavor, but questioned why the prince was just watching her. He was curious as to why she had returned the fish she had just caught. So she explained when she caught fish that were too young, she released them. She didn't mean to be greedy, she only wanted enough to enjoy. The prince was taken aback by her words. She offered him some, and he pulled back, despite her warnings that it would be hot. But eating it, he was surprised. He never knew freshly grilled fish could be so delicious and questioned why meals at the castle had always been served cold. But throughout their entire time here together, all Letty could think about was what the prince's aim was. She brought back some fish to show off to folks at the town square. The folks were always impressed by the hooks she made herself, given they'd always attract several fish with ease. This worried Prince Clark, as he pointed out the hooks could hurt her hands. It was clear he didn't understand what life in the countryside was like. The people loved Lady Letitia, be it old ladies, children, pets, anyone and everyone really. As she played with the kids, one of the shop owners told Clark about how lively the village has been since her return, and how even though she may be a noblewoman, she always treated them without even a hint of prejudice. Everyone in town simply adored her. The prince can now see that taking her would be the same as stealing her from everyone. But now petting the dog, pleading at him, he assured the dog he'd do anything to make Letitia happy. Walking back with Letitia to her place, he offered to help carry her stuff, but she refused. She'd never let anyone touch her precious fishing gear. She was never cut out to be a princess to begin with. She's always loved running around, climbing trees, and fishing. She liked the outdoors more than fashion, and was a natural loudmouth. Nothing in the world made her happier than being out in nature like this. The prince suddenly made a stop to point out the farm animals, and we learned they belonged to Letty's family. Seeing a horse come up, she gave it a nice pet, and now seeing him caress the horse, she was blown away. She had never paid any attention to him before, but now, as he stood amongst nature, she could see how handsome he really was. He was happy to have come out here, seeing multiple sides of her, be it her anger, seriousness, and even her smiling. His loving gaze made her blush, until he suddenly dropped the bomb that the two of them were still engaged. Before she could respond though, he took off on horseback. Returning home, she told Lily they should elope, even bringing up how love transcended gender. However, Lily sarcastically responded there was no kind of love between them, then proceeded to inform her that her big brother was visiting. Letty ran frantically to her brother, who was calmly reading. She wanted to know why she was still engaged to the prince, so he told her to think carefully. Not once during their interaction at the ball did Prince Clark ever actually say a single thing about wanting an annulment. Recalling it all, she realized he was right. She couldn't believe this. She asked about Brianna, who had been standing beside the prince. So, Nadir answered that the prince was just trying to make her jealous. Clark seemed to take great pleasure in watching Letty's enthusiastic reactions. Brianna had enough of this bantering though. She was begging for Letty to come back, as she had been stuck taking princess lessons ever since she left. Letty was unsure why Brianna wanted her to come back, but Brianna sharply responded she wasn't interested in a prince who was head over heels for another woman. However, the worst part of it all for Brianna was Lila. The strictness was killing her. On top of that, the prince officially declared he'd only produce heirs with Letty. Letty screamed back, red-faced upon hearing that. Then, a knock at the door. Letty and Nadir's parents were calling for her, and going over, Letty got a swift knock from her mother, telling her she wasn't here just because she missed her. Duchess Dorman wanted to know what happened back at the castle. The Duchess even interrupted her husband, who wanted to try to have a loving reunion, as their daughter's future was at stake here. This was all too much for Letty, so she got dressed that night and prepared to escape. Exiting the door, her cape was unfortunately caught by Brianna, who had no plans on letting Letty escape, because if she didn't bring Letty back, she'd be stuck with princess lessons. However, Letty offered her older brother, the male heir to a duchy who was 22, intelligent, athletic, and tall. That was enough for Brianna to let Letty go, and so, Letty told Brianna her brother's favorite food and took off, unbeknownst to the fact that he had witnessed the entire event. Letty was happy to be free again, but not expecting Prince Clark to be here to catch her. He wanted to talk about wedding dress colors, but this wasn't a really good time for her. Because it's a better time for you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Here at My Shoujo Weekly, I've got plenty of stories for you to enjoy with the most royal of characters. You'll find romance, you'll find comedy, you'll find the hottest of princes. So come on, hit that subscribe, I'll be your guy. Queen Laura quickly walked through the halls, startling Sebastian with her questions. They learned Prince Clark would be returning home tomorrow, and that she particularly liked Letitia. Back at the countryside mansion, Letitia was struggling in Clark's arms, who wouldn't let her go knowing she tried to run off again, so she gave up. With Nadir answering, she reminded him about his promise. However, he just ignored her, letting the prince know things would be proceeding as planned. Letty's parents were laughing over the matter, and Lily mouthed a wish of happiness to the future king and queen. If Letty had known this was going to be the result, she would have worked out a lot harder to escape. Riding back via carriage, the prince asked Letty if she hated him for taking her away like this. And she didn't. The prince was almost joyful, until hearing she didn't like him either. However, the thing he was most curious about was if she at least started taking interest in him as a man. Really though, she never put any thought into that even once. Sitting beside her, he grabbed her hands, causing her to shriek and flail. He was delighted they finally had a chance to talk to each other. However, he was just a little too close now. He wanted to see her face up close. And remembering Brianna telling her Clark only wanted to produce heirs with her, she shoved the prince off, heaving, then saying to him that was enough. But this only made him laugh. Realizing what she had done, she apologized, but he thought nothing of it, instead deciding to rest on her shoulder, knowing their trip would be a long way back. She screamed there was no way she could sleep like this, which was totally false, by the way, considering the prince woke her up upon arrival back at the castle, showing her the open pasture he had made containing horses and a small creek. She was amazed. He knew she'd like it. She could even go fishing here. When they got married, he wanted her to be able to be free to do as she pleased. He believed she was a proper lady now, and thought it was fine they ended her princess lessons. Clark got permission from his father, the king, when he told his father he'd never marry anyone besides her, and he'd have kids with nobody else. Now getting on one knee, he asked her to marry him, but no matter what reason he used, she denied this. She didn't want to marry into the royal family. So unfortunately, the prince resorted to locking her into a room where she couldn't open the door or windows. She was tired though, So she decided to rest. She dreamt she was reeling in a big one, and on her fishing line was the prince. In this nightmare, she ended up in the town square, where she was swarmed by Prince Clarks who kept proposing to her. Then a sea monster Clark rose from the fountain behind her, telling her to hurry up and marry him. She woke up screaming and panting in tears from it all. Nothing a little breakfast wouldn't cure though. She was then treated to a bath, got her hair brushed, and given a lovely dress to wear, where she found her chance to push the maid aside because she really wanted her freedom. She escaped out a castle window, where she fell on her butt, getting found by the prince as usual. He took her hand, and picking her up once again, he wanted to impress upon her that there was absolutely no escape. Seems their plan to live a free, tranquil life had failed once more, and when she was at her wit's end, they started feeding her exquisite meals and croissants. The bath was also warmed and smelled so good. Maria, the maid, was clearly good at buttering her up, perfectly fine, despite the fact Letitia had shoved her down. Letitia then realized she and her were about the same age, same height, and had similar figures. Oh no. She started harassing the maid to swap clothes with her. Prince Clark suddenly entered, learning that Letty was trying to escape again. He just sighed, knowing she hadn't accepted his feelings for her yet. So his plan was to now elucidate how he felt about her, slowly and thoroughly. He just sat her down to try to talk like close friends. But by the end of the night, she was totally exhausted. She thought back to his sweet words, telling her that her skin radiated like the glow of a pure white lily blossom. Her blushing cheeks were like fresh roses that illuminated with color. He had thrown out so many sweet comparisons for her. She was now kicking her feet on the bed. Still though, she felt it wasn't right for her to be locked up, without even having her feelings considered. That night being left alone, Letty made an attempt to escape by smashing the window, joyously skipping before being caught by the prince again. He twirled her in close, asking if she'd prefer a necklace of diamonds or pearls for her wedding dress. Letitia hit the barred glass, expressing her disbelief in what had happened. After the other day, she's been moved to new quarters, which were created specifically to hold nobles that would betray the crown. Brianna reiterated Letitia's choice to break a window just to flee, saying she brought this on herself while enjoying a cookie. We learned Brianna was here through a request from the prince to be Letitia's conversation partner. He was apparently paying her oodles for this. Letitia tried to shame her for swindling the prince, but to this, Brianna explained money to be the most important thing in this world. Letitia tried to dissuade Maria from Brianna's ideas. However, the maidservant totally agreed. Despite Brianna's continued enjoyment of snacks, eating was not her job, but instead her book was, titled Overcoming Princess Lessons for Love. An excerpt read, "That will not do." The words stung like a bucket of cold ice water dumped on her head. Trembling, Letitia slowly looked up to see the tutor staring down at her with chilling, piercing eyes. Letitia pursed her lips tightly and then said, "I beg your pardon?" Letitia's lady-in-waiting rushed into her side. "Please stop. If this continues, it will take a physical toll on my mistress. A girl too weak to withstand princess lessons is not fit to become queen. Her Majesty must be strong of mind and body." As the lady-in-waiting continued to challenge the tutor's scathing words, Letitia turned to her with a gentle smile. "Thank you, but I'll be all right." Letitia waveringly arose, as if searching her body for the strength to stand. Her lady-in-waiting beheld Letitia sympathetically as tears welled in her eyes. Letitia stood with her head held high before the harsh tutor. "I will show her that I can overcome any difficulty in order to wed my beloved Prince Clark one day." Letitia called the tale a farce. Even though Brianna's romance novel was the talk of the town right now, Brianna's aim was to spread through high society just how grueling princess lessons really were, per direct request from Clark. He wanted to manipulate public opinion and for his people to have a positive impression of his fiancée. The people saw Letitia right now as a brave maiden who endured brutal princess lessons for the sake of love. There was scarcely a soul in the kingdom opposed to the idea of Letitia becoming princess. Letitia was not pleased one bit though. She wanted her freedom. But to this, Brianna told Letitia she had commitment issues, and even beyond that, could she really give up the delicious food and warm toasty bed here? Then suddenly, watching Letitia gracefully drink her tea in the manner her lessons had taught her, Brianna was blown away. She believed even other women would fall for Letitia's charm. Letitia lamented, thinking anyone could have learned this much after 10 years of lessons. But Brianna disagreed. Her short time with lessons made her want to scream. And even Catherine and Isabella, who went to nursery school since they were kids, said the lessons were horrible. Letitia then got up, mentioning how she's never had her freedom. She was forced into an engagement that didn't even make sense to her, and always sequestered. She'd never even been in love. She couldn't stand the idea of marrying someone she didn't love. She didn't know what it meant to be in love, but she still wanted to decide how to live her life. Hearing this, Brianna simply replied Letitia was spoiled and privileged. Letitia later sighed and tapped her feet together when Nadir came by to scold her sloven behavior and give her a letter. It was from their mother. She was looking forward to the day Letitia became crowned princess. Things were as peaceful as ever back home. Regardless of Letitia's wishes, her brother would not let her go back to the Dorman estate or give her old room back. He did, however, bring a gift that she promptly sniffed. It was muffins their mother used to make like when they were kids. There was one catch to this though. Nadir had a hand in making them as a death muffin roulette. They first started off with rock, paper, scissors, and since Letitia won, she'd be picking from the muffins first. Letitia would sniff and pick. Nadir would somehow feel them emotionally, enjoying the good muffins until they got down to the last two. Letitia stared the muffins down, causing Nadir to point out that not only did she not have good observational skills, but she was also indecisive and had a bad habit of choosing poorly, on top of being stubborn. Taking too long, Nadir grabbed first, and both taking a bite, the siblings shouted in pain. Seems their mother was the only winner here. Nadir was glad their pain at least cheered his sister up. That evening, since nobody was around during bedtime, Letitia of course thought there was only one thing left to do: embark on her great escape. In her room, she found a mysterious latch, but it was more like a storage space. She then looked at the bookcase and happened to come across Prince Clark's diary. She thought to ignore it at first, but just couldn't resist. However, she wasn't expecting the book to be tied to a mechanism that revealed a secret passage. Just to make sure it wasn't a trap, she tossed the prince's diary in first. All safe it seemed, until she heard the prince call her name, revealing him to be happily sitting on a chair, as he called her naughty for tossing his diary. He actually hoped she would have come a lot sooner, but she wondered what he was doing here. Turns out, he moved to this room suspecting she'd find the hidden door at some point. Thinking it was for the best his darling Letty came to see him on her own. She tried to make an excuse to get back to her room, but he told her, no rush, tugging the switch to close the bookcase behind her and pulled her back. In her arms, he thought she was truly adorable. Making her super red and now seeing the bed, she started flailing to be let free. She called him shameless for trying to produce heirs when they weren't even married and pushed him onto the bed, panting and heaving intensely. He put two and two together on what she was thinking, then explained he didn't want them to consummate their marriage until they formally wed. That was his dream anyway. However, he couldn't completely turn off how he felt about her, so he softly asked, please allow me this one thing, pulling in close to her for a hug. He had always wanted to snuggle with her like this. Words couldn't express everything. He wanted to show love as well. He called her a good girl over and over throughout the night. The next morning, Letitia and Maria moved a heavy piece of furniture beside the bookcase. Now Letitia could sleep in peace. Maria didn't know what this was about until Letitia explained, and much to Letty's dismay, the maid thought it was wonderful that two engaged lovebirds were using a hidden door for a secret rendezvous. Letitia, on the other hand, couldn't take that kind of affection night after night. Suddenly, the two noticed the bookcase shaking violently against the heavy furniture placed. It stopped, causing Letitia to celebrate finally beating the prince. But of course, he just walked over to her door. Learning of her scheme to stop him, he had Maria promptly remove the heavy piece blocking the secret door, and told Letitia he'd see her later tonight. She later expressed her grievances with Nadir, who gave her a solution to the prince's touchy-feeliness. That night, Prince Clark was open arms seeing his beloved princess come to him, but his mood saddened because she was serious, telling him if he ever approached her so brazenly again, she'd never speak his name again. That was Nadir's solution. He told Letitia to be strict and say the words with conviction. Clark couldn't handle the idea of her never saying his name again, so he somberly accepted her terms, closing the hidden door behind him. The next day, she was absolutely elated, describing the whole event to Brianna. She'd never been more grateful to her brother. Brianna called Letitia's acts cruel, claiming the prince only listened to her words this time because he cared for her. Brianna believed it wasn't fair Letitia asked him not to flirt with her, because how could you make someone fall for you without making the effort? Letitia had no idea though. Maria then came in with Clark's visitation plans, which seemed to be every night. Letty was losing her mind, realizing she didn't limit the amount of times he could visit her. During a social gathering, Letitia wanted to actually approach Prince Clark for once. However, the white-haired woman gave her a look she could only define as a smirk, telling her, "You don't have a chance, dear." She took her frustrations outside, thinking Clark was getting all gaga over the woman. There was now a pain in Letitia's heart that she didn't quite understand. As the rain began to pour, she felt the sky was shedding tears for her sake, not expecting to get blindsided and kidnapped. A mysterious person carried her to the carriage, where a young boy peeped at them with a cold gaze. Nadir informed the prince of Letitia's kidnapping, where she had been spotted getting put into a carriage bearing the royal crest of Delbaron. This was concerning since the gatekeepers did not find anything strange about the carriage at all. Learning the carriage was heading back to the country of Delbaron, Prince Clark ordered Sebastian to attend to the guests as normal, in order to avoid any commotion. The prince and Nadir were going to pursue the captured princess. Letitia slowly wakes up to the sound of the attendant who kidnapped her arguing with the young boy. The attendant had complaints about sitting out in the cold, pouring rain and wanted to take shelter. He wondered why he was always getting the bad end of the stick. With Letitia realizing what was going on, she struggled and the two men took notice. The boy ordered the attendant, Lyle, to remove Letitia's hood, and to the boy's disappointment, they caught the wrong target. The boy wondered how Lyle confused this weird little runt with his darling Maria, but Lyle felt there was too much pressure being put on him. The two bickered, unprepared for Letitia, gag in her mouth saying, "Would you get over yourselves? Also, I can't talk. Take this off." Rather than acknowledging her though, the boy would much rather dump her here instead. Lyle went to approach as he was ordered, not expecting to receive swift kicks from the tomboy princess. Her mouth rag fell off, so now she could shout at them to take her back to the castle. After things settled down, she introduced herself as the daughter of Duke Dorman and fiancée to His Highness Crown Prince Clark of Astarl. Even learning this information and how troublesome it'd be, the two men didn't take it seriously, still proposing she be ditched somewhere nearby, because it's not like they could turn back on what had happened anyway. Letitia responded with, Wait, are you seriously thinking about abandoning a helpless maiden in the middle of a dark forest?" And still, the two said they'd do whatever it took to preserve themselves and their country. Calling them brutes did nothing. Lyle was ready with the hood cover again. But Letitia did not want to be tossed off, instead offering the info she had about her maid, Maria. After getting Letitia untied, the boy, Luis, got all giddy saying Maria had taken his hand, and her smile was as beautiful as an angel's. He'd never seen anyone so lovely before, and was completely spellbound. She smelled nice. He compared his heart pounding like waves against the shore. Lyle introduced Luis as the third prince of the kingdom of Delbaron. A shocking revelation for Letitia, but I'm more shocked at this prince's behavior. Is every prince in this show gonna kidnap their princess? We learn Lady Maria was a count's daughter in their homeland, and that she and Louis were close like siblings. Luis had his attendant correct himself, claiming they were more like lovers. That aside, Maria's family fell into ruin and she had disappeared. They later learned she'd become a lady-in-waiting at Astarl's royal castle. That was around the time Prince Luis received an invitation to tonight's ball. Lyle objected to the kidnapping. However, the prince never listened to anyone. Now that Letitia had clear details on what was going on, her evaluation was that Prince Luis was a sad little boy indulging in a completely one-sided infatuation. The prince didn't like this, but Letitia scoffed it off, humoring him knowing he was probably at the age where he was trying to act all grown up. She had a plan for what they should do next. They chatted at an inn, where Letitia proposed they bring her back to their kingdom of Delbaron and give her reparations for kidnapping via money, land, and a house where she could live as a humble commoner. While Lyle proposed her returning to Astarl, saying they brought her back under their protection after finding out she'd been abducted by bandits. And as a reward for saving her, they asked for Maria's hand for Prince Luis, and avoid being charged for any wrongdoing. Their ideas were so different, but they needed some kind of solution that could avoid strain between their kingdoms. With their dinner served, Letitia and Lyle dug into their food, but the young prince wasn't so eager to see a big eyeball in his soup. One spoon made him instantly gag, whereupon pulling out a fishbone, he wondered if this was an assassination attempt. The prince lived very sheltered, so Lyle offered to pull out all the bones. Letitia wondered why they had decided to stop at an inn. Turns out, Luis wanted to bathe before going to Dreamland, although he disliked the idea of bathing in a pauper's institution, believing his golden duck bathtub was much better. He determined their plan to set out for his kingdom tomorrow, because once they crossed the border, they would be untouchable and avoid diplomatic issues. He also wanted time to work out his plan to get to Maria. Getting to their rooms, everyone complained about the rooming situation. The prince refused to share with anyone, while Letitia refused to share with Lyle. Luis thought it should be no problem though, claiming Letitia didn't have sex appeal. This only pissed her off, believing his statements to be flagrant as she was bursting at the seams with sex appeal. Lyle just wanted the arguing to stop, so Luis and Letitia agreed he should stand guard outside. In her room though, Letitia was already plotting her escape, assuming that even in Delberon, they probably wouldn't respect her wishes at all. She'd be okay by herself for a while, considering she sold her dress and jewelry. She opened the window, taking a breath of fresh air, smelling the path of freedom. But, hearing the screams of Lyle in pain, she never expected to see Prince Clark at her door. He gave a false smile, questioning why in the world she would spend the night with another man. Lyle threw out his excuse of protecting her this entire time, while Letitia interjected that they did in fact kidnap her. However, since she said that, Lyle countered by revealing she wanted to run off to Delberon and live as a commoner. Despite her calling him a traitor, he valued his life. The two continued to bicker while the prince listened, definitely not happy. He covered Letitia's mouth, pointing out the two seemed like very close friends. He then pulled away, realizing what he was doing. Luis then entered in while nude, unhappy because no one at the inn wanted to bathe him. Spotting Clark, he introduced himself, sparkling while claiming he rescued Letitia after she was abducted. They were making a huge scene, so Nadir assured the inn guests he'd quiet them down. He shouted at everyone making a mess, so they finally stopped arguing. To cover up what had happened, he told them the story would be Prince Luis decided to make friends with Letitia and invited her on an outing. Even though she objected, he told her to keep her mouth shut. With everything winding down, Clark teased Letitia, asking why in the world she would be on a first-name basis with other men, even sharing a meal with them. He was extremely angry, holding it all in. Giving her apologies, he decided to hold her close, catching her off guard. He then explained they'd be heading back to the castle, where Letitia would try to make an escape once again, only to be stopped by her big brother. He called her predictable and told her the whole village was covered, so there'd be no chance of escape. He was going to make sure she got married, no matter what. She still refused though. She wanted her freedom. He felt like that's all she cared about. She never acknowledged Clark's kindness and how much he deeply cared for her. He told her she'd never find a better spouse. Clark respected her wishes, so long as she didn't try to run away. He claimed she'd still be free. She agreed, but still whined. So he rubbed her head. He promised he just wanted her to marry someone who would make her happy. This was him showing care. Back at the castle, Maria was relieved to see Letitia was alright, but became shocked seeing Prince Luis running towards her. Turns out they're making preparations for him to do an exchange study here in the Astral Kingdom. However, Maria found that news to be problematic, giving him a death glare. Letitia asked Nadir what this was all about, and he figured she wouldn't try to run away as long as things were exciting around here. Maria ran behind Letitia for cover from the foreign prince, but the one truly calming him down was Nadir, who Luis found a lot more reliable than Lyle. But now, Letitia was wondering where Prince Clark was. While strolling the halls, Brianna ducked, supposedly seeing something she shouldn't have. She used her binoculars to spot Prince Clark chatting it up with the white-haired woman from before, now wondering if he was having an affair. This was too much for her. Ooh, what's gonna happen next? Find out next week by subscribing to my channel. For now though, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all
in the next one.